Patiently, very quietly waiting. The organizers said that they'd like us to start in a couple of minutes. They want to give Rain the chance to bring the others in. So if you don't mind, we just wait a couple of minutes and then we'll start. Hope you're okay with that. Do you want some music?
If you can just request others to come in the front seats, it will be better.
Oh yes, if you want, please, you can move forward. You know, you can see me better. I'm not sure if that's a good thing, but you can still do that. So, but if you feel comfortable back there, you stay where you are. But there's a lot of room in here. And within a couple of minutes, we should be starting. The organizers are trying to see what's the right time to start. You're not going to miss anything because they're going to push the whole program as much behind as we are behind here, and the other streams as well. Nobody has started it yet, so we've not lost on anything.
Friends, I think we have a bit of a delay happening today. Super rains, we all know. Very sorry to keep you guys waiting, but let's wait for another 10 odd minutes. All the sessions in all the ballrooms are starting at 10:30. So we'll start in sharp 7 minutes from now.
Okay.
That's for the chat. So all we are starting.
Okay, 10:30, so if you want to stretch, you can stretch, or if you guys want to put some music on.
No. I think
That's
we should
fine.
use this 7 minutes in a better way.
Okay.
I've been chatting up with Antti just before when we came here, and I think he's a guy you should meet online, offline. We discussed a few things which I thought were very, very interesting, especially for companies who are just starting, want to start, just about 3-4 years old. I think he's doing a wonderful job across. He's working with some non-profit organizations who are helping such startups build. And I'm sure there's a lot of things that you can really take away from him and his time that he's going to be here. So instead of just doing nothing for these 7 minutes, maybe we can just start, and you can start the presentation at 10:30 when we plan to. But generally we can
chat.
Just start talking. Yeah.
We can chat. Thanks very much. I think it's a very important thing what NASCOM is doing with the conference here. I mean, in any industry, any given industry, it is so important to come together. And to earn that place. I mentioned an interesting, I will be next week going to Finland to this startup conference called the Slush. Some of you might have heard it, but most of you probably not. It was started by a good friend of mine and a colleague in Rovio, Peter Westerpakka. He was one of the co-founders, a non-profit organization to help startups to find funding. Now we know all that, you know, it's okay to have a great product, but with no money, you actually have nothing, right? So what this organization was doing 4 years ago, I think it was about 4 years ago, it had 300 people participating and few big shots with a lot of money in their back pockets. That's where it started. Next Tuesday, or actually on Monday evening when it starts, we have there now 12,000 attendance. We have nearly 2,000 startups. The biggest VCs from US are flying in. The keynote speakers include guys who have started Spotify, Double Trader, Supercell, and the list goes on. Companies attending come from China, Japan, Russia, Scandinavia, and so on and so forth. Now, there is absolutely no reason why this happens in Finland. We're 5 million people there. It's slush, hence the name. You know, it's terrible weather there now. Absolutely dismal weather. But what I wanted to say with this is, like conferences like that, with a good determination and with pooling all the resources together, you actually become much bigger than on your own. And I think the gaming industry in India is now coming to a tipping point, or whichever point you want to say that is moving. I know the great future has been promised, but the great future comes in small steps. And I think it's now that this market is ripening up, and hence also, obviously, we're involved in mobile gaming, and that's what we're going to talk about. But because of that revolution that has happened in there, it's relevant. And in my session, we're going to go through some of those things. Now, if you are here to find a good answer of how to become a billionaire, you're in the wrong place. If I could give you that answer, there would be a much bigger price tag on this session. But I'm here to provoke a few questions in your mind on what you might want to be thinking of, and you will then find the answers yourselves into that. Now, I think the important thing in any session is also interactivity. So I have 3 interactivity tools lined up in here, and I will explain how they work a bit later. But obviously it's all about the brand as well. And our journey in the company of Rovio has been somewhat interesting, like gaming industry in itself. And that journey is taking us somewhere where we don't know, but we're actively putting all our resources to find out. And it's been a tremendous. And having created something that everybody recognizes is a privilege. But if you speak with anybody who has so-called success, you will always find that these people are very modest when it comes to their own skills, and they will always highlight the element of luck. So no matter how much you try, you also need that element of luck. And I think you just have to accept that. Hard work is needed. Luck is then the topping to make it really come true. And I think you have a lot of examples of that in the world. Now, in the session, I'm not going to take anything away. We're about 2 minutes away from the big starting of this event. I will be focusing, as I said, in that pre-announced title about discovery first. We'll have a few discussions. Nothing that you might not know, but it just take it up there. Distribution is, of course, the other one, and monetization has been spoken already in the conference and will get spoken a lot. And I think then there's perhaps something interesting that I'm going to say as well, which is nothing to do with those directly. In the whole process of creating a game, it's somewhat wrong to discuss about these things if you think with your heart. It's like music industry. Take a guitar and you don't start thinking about iTunes first. No, you think about tunes, what you're going to put there, and not where you're going to get that one. However, when the industry has evolved how it has evolved, being just very passionate about the game is not enough. Because if nobody knows that you've done the biggest and best game in the world, it doesn't really matter. So you have to look at these things before and not after. So if you take these as your tools in creativity rather than restrictions, I think you are in a better route. But I take the music industry just because I think this is such a creative industry when you look at the gaming industry. And the passion comes from creativity. But the industry is now all data-driven. Industry is all industrialized, and industry is growing fast. So you have to try to find the right balance on how you combine the creativity with these somewhat more boring stuff, but so important ones to make you successful. But before I start, I just wanted to raise that issue and say, no matter what or how well you do this, if you have a crap game, nothing matters. So I start this whole idea of thinking that you do actually have a good game with these things coming up. Obviously, that is something that is important. So, with that said, I think we're ready to kick off this session. So, welcome and congratulations to everybody making it in here. I also would like to thank the organization and the organizers, the NASCOMs and others, for inviting us. My name is Antti Ohrling. I'm a country director for Rovio here in India, to have this morning session with you guys. I'm going to say a few things about Rovio. Most of you might know it, some of you might not know all of that, but I think it's important just that you see where we come from and where the ideas and the whole sort of mentality that I have in my presentation stems from. Now, this is what we do. These are the icons, these are the games have created that 2.5 billion downloads. It's the combination of all that. It all started as an Angry Birds and is continuing forward. Probably the most downloaded app in the world. It's a great testament for gaming. It's a great testament for people actually want to game. Now, we also could say that we have about 1 million's worth of games played. When I saw this, I said, okay, 1 million years, what is that? Well, sorry, is this. 1 million years was when the dinosaurs were roaming. And this is just for your entertainment if you like the good, nice images. And Rachel Wells in 1960s in this movie, and I still wonder how that went through the censorship. Dinosaurs were roaming. They were eating other dinosaurs 1 million years ago. You might have females, but probably a bit more hairy than she is, roaming at that time. So from that 1 million year to this day, someone was playing Angry Birds at any given point. So, okay, that's a long time. And that's why we have this, obviously. The brand has been created only through the game. There's not been anything else. I mean, of course, people write about it and do it, but the brand actually stems from the people themselves. It's the only place where the brand can be created. Now, I have a lot of history also in advertising industry and everything, but I never have believed that you can create a brand without substance. So the core of a brand is the game. That's the only reason that the brand can be created. Then, all the other stuff we're now discussing is just the means to make it bigger, means to make it better. But coming back to my starting point, without a good game, nothing works. Marketing is an interesting industry, and you say nothing kills a bad product quicker than good marketing. And that's exactly how it happens. So you have to have that. So let's go to this and saying what we think, how can we play a bigger game on mobile? Now, what does that mean? It means that the gaming industry is moved a lot to the mobile environment. Some of the biggest success stories in gaming industry are there only because of the mobile. Obviously, we have different facets of the industry, and the mobile is the sort of the new entrant. Some people say, well, it's actually nothing. What's a casual gamer spending a minute or two with a game to do something that we can do three-dimensionally and with a big screen and all the rest? Yeah, of course, they're different parts of the same industry. But this mobile industry has entered and is changing the game. Now, have a look at that. I'm taking Kim Kardashian. I'm not taking her bum, which is now all over the internet, but just taking as a game. Now, a few years back, would you have thought that somebody whose job is just to be herself, doing nothing, and telling everybody that she is herself and doing nothing, would create a game that was slated to do $200 million a year, but is probably doing $100 million a year? $100 million. Now, what's the other industry where you could get that much of money being somebody who does nothing but being herself? right? And, you know, it's not complex, it's not flashy, but it's very interesting for the target audience. And if you look at the people who are playing, a part of their complaining is crashing a lot, they are hooked to it. They are completely hooked to it. Similar that they're hooked to the TV show. It's just expanding and taking the gaming industry and the interactions into the game. Now, what is this change that is happening? And I've just put some words there. You can pick your own one or add other words if you like. We can say, yes, the female audience entering the mobile gaming is really changing the landscape. Or we could say that, we feel that the regulation that will come into in-app purchases will change the way those are being done. Or we could say that the smartphone revolution is actually the one which is really driving this. Or we could say that there's an investor bonanza coming up. And whatever you pick, I'm not here to make a forecast, I'm just saying it's changing. So whatever you think the mobile industry is today is not going to be that next year. It's going to be different. And these factors and other factors will be contributing. So not only are we seeing a gaming industry where the mobile gaming is changing it, we also see that the gaming within mobile is changing a lot. So how do we keep up? Well, we don't. You just have to be there and be part of it. So in this game, we start with discovery. Without discovery, there's no game. That's for sure. So we're going to talk about that discovery issue a few times. What is this there? Once you have the discovery in place, you also need to have, of course, the distribution in place. And I'm not saying it's adding distribution to discovery, it's multiplying. This equation does not work on adding, it's multiplying. Because then when you put the last one there, to monetization, that's the only way you get that big gain. However, any of these being zero, and your whole equation is zero, obviously. So it's so important to look at all these things together, to understand that what's a game with huge discovery and distribution but no monetization means that you're poor, and you remain poor, or you're losing money. Or you have a great discovery, but the distribution is not good, so you're losing a lot of money. Let's start looking at that, and start from the discovery. And by the way, if you have here, we have a question and answer session afterwards, then I think we could address any of the issues, any of the questions that you have, I'll try to answer. Discovery. Why is discovery important is, of course, of this. About 11,000, 12,000, 15,000, you give the number, it's big. New games will be added in app stores worldwide. Although you have the best game, so does the 11,000 others. So the discovery comes from this rush to create something, worldwide rush to create something, and try to figure out how can people find out that I've done this marvelous, great job. So you start with this, which is cheap, and you have to do it anyway. You want to get some recommendations and reviews on different app stores and other places. I've taken as an example our latest retry game. It was the editor's choice, obviously. Then you have a lot of other stuff. People are writing about it. You try to get into the different communities to people to tell about this. So in fact, you want to get other peers to write about you and making reviews and recommendations. And I think this is this is not rocket science. Everybody wants to do that. You want to put your game into places, you want to make it so that your search engines are optimized, it finds your game when people are trying to find. Another given. There's nothing new in here. Coming to the social media connection is interesting. A lot of hype, but so important hype. Because when you get a promotion, who do you tell? Well, you tell it to your friends, and they can tell to other friends, and so on and so forth. So, I'm sorry, I have a bit of flu. This is our numbers in social media connections. So when we have 27 million people following us in Facebook, about 1 million in Twitter, 2 billion in YouTube, and this is not bragging, I'm just stating the fact why this is so important for any gaming company, is that obviously these are the people we reach out first. These are the people we have to keep engaged, and these are the people that have to know more about us than any other people, because they're our best friends. And once we tell something to them, well, they have their own network, which will go and go and go on. So 27 million becomes 300 million very quickly, if we are interesting enough. But it stays 27 million if something we say to them stays with them and they feel, oh, I'm not going to share this. This is not interesting. So it's very important to understand that this is not advertising, it's an interaction. And you should have a different tonality. Companies like ourselves and other companies are struggling when you have professionals coming on board. Because you have to keep this friend tonality. When you come too corporate, it starts to be like, oh, you don't have the right feeling. So very tricky. You have to have some corporate issues there because it's public. And at the same time, the tonality has to be approachable. Not here to lecture you about your social media. I'm sure there's more expert in the audience, but just pointing it out. If you don't have this aspect, you're losing out in that sort of discovery part. Now, PR events, gatherings. There was a gathering yesterday evening, by the way. And the reason that the gathering this morning is not as big as the gathering yesterday evening. PR events and gatherings are important. And I've taken the Plunder Pirates, which is the Rovio Stars newest games that we brought out together with Miroki. And they came up with this, and then they did something like this. They went to New York and made this plunder party. So you would ask, well, why do you put a pirate ship and invite 10,000 people to come to a bar in the corner of New York somewhere? Is, of course, when you get the 1,000 people coming in, they have their 100 or 1,000 friends and so on and so forth. So you get completely different level of engagement when you actually bring something physical for people. And then that feeds back to your social networks, and that starts to create that sort of snowball event. Fans is one. But then there is another aspect of these type of things and events. It's the overlooked aspect of actually engaging people that have big meaning from the business-to-business point of view to you. Whether they are